Hello, and thanks for stopping by. Out of all the streets in London, few can boast a name more evocative than Electric Avenue, a famous road bustling with shops and a market, which is located just around the corner from Brixton tube station. When it was first unveiled in the late 1880s, Electric Avenue's name was pretty much literal, for it was the first street in London to be lit entirely by electricity. Electricity in those days being a new and very exciting technology. The very first street in the world to be lit by electricity, Mosley Street in Newcastle upon Tyne, had flicked the power on in 1879, whilst London's Savoy Theatre was the first public building in the world to be lit by electricity when it opened its doors in October 1881. Soon after these landmark events, in 1882, the Electricity Lighting Act was passed, which granted private companies the right to dig up streets and string cables overhead in pursuit of this new technology. This opportunity was quickly embraced by the American inventor Thomas Edison, who built the world's first public coal-powered electricity generating station at 57 Holborn Viaduct. Edison's power plant is sadly long gone, although when in operation, it powered two important buildings located nearby, those being the General Post Office, which was based on St Martin's le Grand, and the Old Bailey. Numerous other small power stations began to emerge, each operating with different systems, voltages and frequencies, supplying electricity to premises owned by those wealthy enough to afford it. This rush to cash in on electrical mania soon attracted the attention of two Scottish brothers, John and Alexander Fyfe, who hailed from Aberdeen. John Fyfe was a prominent and very wealthy businessman who'd made his fortune through quarrying granite. His stone was considered to be of the highest quality, and as such was incorporated into many famous structures, including Liverpool's Royal Albert Building, and in London, Tower Bridge, Blackfriars Bridge, Southwark Bridge, Vauxhall Bridge, Putney Bridge, and Kew Bridge, as well as the Queen Victoria Memorial outside Buckingham Palace. John's brother, Alexander, meanwhile, of who I've sadly not been able to track down an image, was an accomplished inventor, his specialist field being electrical engineering. And so, in 1882, the two brothers founded the Fyfe Main Electrical Lighting and Contraction Company to promote a system of electrical lighting which had been devised by Alexander. One of the earliest demonstrations of the Fyfe brothers' lighting system took place at a function held in the Marlborough Rooms at 309 Regent Street, which incidentally was also where the French Lumiere brothers chose to exhibit their cinematograph, essentially an early film projector, in 1896. And in a nice historical twist, the building is indeed now home to a cinema. Although John Fyfe divided his time between Aberdeen and London, Alexander lived in Brixton, at 65 Angel Road. And by the 1880s, this corner of southwest London was becoming a popular shopping destination, South London's Oxford Street if you will, largely thanks to the large Bon Marché department store which had opened on Brixton Road in 1877. This, along with the increased interest in electricity, encouraged the Fyfe brothers to come up with an idea. That being to create an ornate, purpose-built shopping street in Brixton, which would be entirely powered by electricity, both the shops and the street lighting itself. They took their main inspiration from the high-end Burlington Arcade, which runs between Piccadilly and Burlington Gardens. Permission for this ambitious project was granted, and a patch of land lying between Atlantic Road and a strip then known as Brixton Place was earmarked to accommodate it. The Fyfe's private enterprise would also cross an existing street known as Back Lane. Running between Atlantic Road and Cold Harbour Lane, Back Lane had quite a seedy reputation in the early 1880s, mainly due to the presence of an illicit venue known as the Roundabout, which was essentially a fun fair, complete with swings and shooting galleries. This place of entertainment was loathed by many locals, and in 1885, in an attempt to have it shut down, it is reported that at least one girl had lost her character for attending, and that it was more than a nuisance, it was an abomination. The hallowing, the whistling and shrieking into the night was beyond description. The northern end of Back Lane, meanwhile, was home to this former pub, which for many years was known as the Railway Hotel. As you can see, it's topped by a small clock tower, which has long been a Brixton landmark. In the late 20th century, this pub became a popular music venue. It's even claimed Jimi Hendrix jammed here one night. It was later renamed Brady's, and in the 1990s, the Alabama Free, who famously provided the theme tune for the TV crime drama The Sopranos, held some of their earliest gigs here. The Victorian residents of Back Lane welcomed the Electric Avenue project, so much so that in 1885, whilst a new street was being laid out, they asked if the name of their own street could be changed to the far more glamorous sounding Electric Lane, a request which, as we can see today, was granted. Electric Avenue was completed in 1888, which, to give you some context, was the very same year in which Jack the Ripper was stalking the far gloomier Whitechapel on the opposite side of the Thames. To provide the juice, Electric Avenue had its own small dedicated power station, known as the Fyfe station, and in keeping with the curator's Scottish background, the engine and dynamos used in this plant were purchased second-hand from the Forth Bridge Railway Company, who had used them during construction of that mighty crossing. Electric Avenue was fitted out mainly with shop units, although there were apartments too, known as electric mansions, and along each side of the road there ran a grand colonnade fashioned from glass and wrought iron columns. At first though, despite the dazzle, Electric Avenue was something of a white elephant. The new road remained empty, with both business owners and shoppers seemingly preferring the bustle of nearby Atlantic Road. As a journalist for The Scotsman wrote in December 1890, they, the developers, expected Atlantic Road, with its comparatively squalid accommodation, to be superseded. But the new road has not found a tenant. It has stood desolate for several months, and Atlantic Road, with its naphtha lamps and its unsheltered barrows and carts, is as brisk as ever. Fortunately, things soon began to change for Electric Avenue when the rental price for each unit was significantly lowered, encouraging shop owners to give the bold new enterprise a go. The first business to move in 1891, was Park's Drugstore, the proprietor of which figured the clean, modern look of Electric Avenue would be of great benefit to his own trade. Indeed, within just a few years, thanks to its bright, glittering displays of medicine bottles, the Electric Avenue branch of Park's was considered to be the best-known chemist in London. Today, the site is home to a similar shop, a branch of Boots. Also opened on Electric Avenue in 1891 was a large shop called the Bonanza, which, with a pretty rockery and fernery at the entrance, and hams, bacon, butter, cheese, fish, poultry, fruit, flowers, vegetables, wine, spirits, beer and cigars all being on sale, was very much a prototype of the modern supermarket. A number of jewellers also set up shop, along with a large menswear store called Our Sons, a ghost sign for which can still be spotted above Electric Lane. It was at Christmas time though that Electric Avenue really came to the fore. Before the First World War, its festive lights were as famous as the displays which are now held on Oxford Street and Regent Street. The first major Christmas display was arranged by Alexander Fyfe in December 1893, when he had the street bedecked in 65 main arc lamps, each of which were 2,000 candle power, and 1,200 fairy lamps, interspersed among 100 full-size trees and between the columns. Along the entire length of the colonnade are suspended baskets of foliage, lighted by incandescent lamps. When Electric Avenue was illuminated like this over Christmas, it was marketed as Paris in London, and trains heading from central London towards Brixton even carried placards bearing this as an actual destination, which must have been quite confusing for those not in the know. John Fyfe, who owned the entire street, handed Electric Avenue over to the parish in 1894, and in 1896, a banquet was held at the former Holborn restaurant in his honour. Here, in a toast to the Scotsman, it was declared that Mr. Fyfe never seemed happier than when he was with his South London friends, and that he was a gentleman who had earned the gratitude not only of Brixtonians, but the country at large. He had raised a place in Brixton which offered every attraction to traders and shoppers alike, and he had enhanced the attractions of the place by illuminating it with electric light. Alexander Fyfe, meanwhile, the brains behind Electric Avenue's early lighting, passed away in 1899. He was buried in Norwood Cemetery, where his now rather forlorn-looking grave can still be seen, just off of the path known as St Marriott Hill. In the early 20th century, Electric Avenue went from strength to strength. One of London's first cinemas, the Electric Palace as it was called, opened on the street in 1909. The Christmas displays continued each year, and in the 1920s, the covered Reliance Arcade Market opened close by, complete with a distinctive, Egyptian-inspired entrance on Electric Lane. Sadly, in World War II, the Grand Colonnades, which stretched along Electric Avenue, were badly damaged by bombs, which were no doubt intended for the nearby railway lines. The glass was smashed to smithereens and never replaced, although the skeletal ironwork remained in situ until the 1980s. From the late 1940s onwards, Brixton began its famous association with the Caribbean, as folk hailing from the Windrush generation began to settle in the area. As such, over the following decades, businesses on and around Electric Avenue began to focus on Caribbean groceries, making it an important hub in an era when such goods were not widely available, and it's a role which the street continues to play to this very day. It was also in the 1940s, 1947 to be precise, that David Jones, aka David Bowie, was born in Brixton, just a short walk from Electric Avenue, at 40 Stansfield Road. It's only a theory of mine, but I like to think that spending part of his childhood so close to Electric Avenue possibly provided Bowie with later inspiration. His famous lightning bolt motif, for example, along with lyrics such as "Keep your electric eye on me, babe," as heard in 1972's Moon Age Daydream. You can see a mural dedicated to David Bowie opposite Electric Avenue on Tunstall Road. Another musical reference is of course the song Electric Avenue, which was released by the British Guyanese musician Eddy Grant in 1983. And if you know the tune, I'm sure it's began playing in your mind as soon as you saw this video pop up. The song was written as a response to the Brixton riots, which had occurred 2 years previously, and during which Electric Avenue suffered some damage. On a happier note, in October 2016, Eddy Grant was invited to perform at the switch-on ceremony of a new neon Electric Avenue sign, which now holds pride of place at the southern end of the famous street. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this look at the history of Brixton's Electric Avenue. Have you ever shopped today yourself? And what other London street names can you think of that have gone on to inspire songs? Please be sure to let me know in the comments. If you haven't yet subscribed to Rob's London, then I'd appreciate it very much if you could please consider doing so, as this, along with clicking the bell icon to receive notifications, would ensure that you don't miss out whenever I publish a new video. Plus of course, it'd be wonderful to have you along. If you're feeling extra generous, you can also support my work with a tip via either my Ko-fi account, which I'll link below, or the YouTube thanks button, which appears as a heart icon beneath the video. Any such financial donations are of course greatly appreciated, and they really do help go towards creating content. Anyway, on that note, thanks again for watching friends. Stay well, and please be sure to stay tuned.